What's wrong with being a nice guy?
What's wrong with being a nice guy? That's a good question. When I put out a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, I'm sure a lot of people picked it up and said, wait a minute, there's already enough not nice guys out there. Why somebody write a book teaching men how to be not nice? The, the problem with being a nice guy, just a quick elevator pitch, is that a nice guy is a guy who inaccurately internalized a belief system at a very young age. I'm not okay, just as I am. So he's trying to do two things, very unconsciously usually. One is become what he thinks everybody else wants him to be, so he'll be liked and loved and get his needs met and get laid, hopefully, regularly, and hide anything about himself that might get a negative reaction from people. Hiding his needs, his wants, his sexuality. So while he's trying to get laid, he's hiding his sexuality. So a core problem with nice guy syndrome is nice guys tend to be unauthentic. There's not a real them there. They're trying to become something, hide something, and that tends to make them fairly dishonest, untrustworthy, frustrated, resentful, passive aggressive. A whole list of traits that can go along, and mainly it prevents. I'm a recovering nice guy, so I'm not speaking down to anybody. It keeps us from just being ourselves, living up to our full potential, having what we want in life, having a good time. And so just a lot of baggage comes along with it.
What are the component parts of being a nice guy? What are the traits that they embody or project?
What you'll recognize most often, and what listeners may recognize in themselves, core tendencies often people pleasing, seeking external validation, and for men, usually that's seeking validation from women. Even gay guys, I find, tend to do it, even if they don't plan on having sex with the women. We can talk more about this, but we've learned from birth to please women. So there's that people pleasing, that external validation, um, failing to live up to one's full potential, a basic core dishonesty. Thinking, I'm a good guy. I'm pretty honest. I always laugh when men tell me they're pretty honest. I say that's actually a contradiction of terms. You're honest or you're not. Um, and and just for most nice guys, there's just a certain dull depression that they live with. Just thinking, I should be happy. I should be getting what I want. I should be getting love. I should, but I'm not, and I don't know why not. And so there's a lot of the characteristics, but the core piece you'll see the most often is that people pleasing, that seeking of external validation.
Who is the prototypical nice guy avatar? Like, describe him for me.
Oh, he's just that guy that's, walking through life, trying to make everybody happy, trying not to do anything wrong, don't want to fuck anything up, doesn't want to piss anybody off, goes along to get along. We've heard that, happy wife, happy life. If I just make everybody happy, everything's good. I have a course that I've taught for a number of years called Nice Guys Don't Finish Last. They rot in middle management. So he's good at being good, but he doesn't excel. He doesn't stand out, because standing out is actually really scary for nice guys. It's too much attention. It's too much expectation. So, when I started working with nice guys 30 years ago, most of the men I worked with, probably were around my age. I was in my early 30s at that time. And so it was a lot of baby boom generation guys. They were trying to be different than their fathers, the World War II, men. They were in that protest generation against Vietnam, growing their hair out, getting in touch with their feminine side. And so a lot of the men I worked with, kind of grew up in that era. But I've been doing this for a while. And so, my son's 38, for example. So, I work with millennials, men younger than that. And what's funny is, whereas my generation, a lot of the men kind of attribute part of their nice guy stuff to, well, my dad wasn't there, or, my parents divorced, or, he worked all the time, or he's an alcoholic. Nowadays, I hear a lot of men say, oh, my dad was a nice guy. And about all he taught me about life was, don't piss off your mother. And because he was walking around eggshells trying not to piss off my mother. So, I've seen that whole range all the way from the guys that were reacting to, the asshole, patriarchal father to now the guys that were raised by nice guys and they don't know any other way of being.
It's like one generation had the tyrant and the other generation had the compliant.
That's a
And
good way to put it. That's nice. The,
yeah,
the tyrant, the compliant.
yeah, it was. But here's the interesting thing, right? And it's so fascinating that you had one generation that was rebelling in their niceness, even if that
Yes.
niceness isn't that
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And then another generation that was following in their niceness. So there seems to be a particular stickiness to niceness. If tyrants that are emotionally unavailable and not nice are able to create nice guys, and nice fathers are also
We're
able.
in big trouble. We're
So why is it so prevalent? What is this pull? Are we, as men, are we inculcating or absorbing something from the world? Is this the way that we were raised by mum and dad? What's the origin? What's the genesis, the seed of this?
Well, that's a good question, of course, and of course, what every nice guy wants. Well, how did I get to be this way?
Who
And
cursed me with this?
yeah, I quickly learned when I started working with nice guys again 30 years ago that there is no one size fit all how you got to be a nice guy. I thought there was at first. I thought they were all like me, disconnected from their father in some significant way, significantly raised by their mother, trying to please their mom, and I thought, well, that explains it all, but it didn't. And there's so many pieces that go into it. A lot of men I work with that identify as being nice guys, I think part of it's their temperament. Part of it's just they're easygoing. My mother would often say in adulthood to women I was dating, "Oh, Bobby never did like conflict," and I'm thinking, "Oh, thanks, mom. What are you telling these women? Be nice to my son. Don't be mean to him." But I'm also thinking, who does like conflict? I do tend to marry women who like to fight, but for me, it's kind of like, you know, can't, can't, instead of us, you doing something that starts a fight, I say to them, can't I just yell at you a little bit? You cry and then I hold you. Isn't that really what, this is all about anyway? And my wife will always say, no, it doesn't count unless you're really mad at me. So I don't like conflict in particular. So that's my temperament. So
Yeah, so
I'm a
there's a
little bit avoidant.
disposition that many of the nice guys will have, the raw materials of someone that's a little
Part
bit
of my
conflict
nature.
averse. Yeah, yep,
Part
yep.
of my nature. But that's just kind of one category of nice guy.
Mhm.
The other one that I bumped into, I call often those the I'm so good nice guy. He's the guy that just always did everything right no matter what. But the other side I talk about, when Mr. Nice Guy is what I call the I'm so bad nice guy. This is the one that, maybe started rebelling at an early age, maybe had ADHD undiagnosed, he's always impulsive, getting in trouble, not following through, getting yelled at, getting punished, starts doing drugs and alcohol at 14, drops out of school. And then maybe at some point has a come to Jesus moment, religion, military, gets married as a kid, death in the family. He goes, I got to quit, self-destructing. I gotta be nicer. So there's that kind of nice guy as well. So it's a different temperament than the other. One of the pieces, there's so many pieces that go into this, but to answer your question, what's the stickiness part? Again, I think a real core piece that I see with so many nice guys is this attempt to please women. And I was talking to somebody the other day. It makes perfect sense because if you think about it, we're all born to a woman. Our earliest caregiver, if it's not mom, it's probably some other woman. So from the time we're born, our very survival, our sustenance, our okayness depends on a woman and probably us getting along with that woman. That's probably a good thing, right? And so that's really normal that our first experiences are how to negotiate a relationship with a woman to make that big, powerful, holds our life in her hands person, how to make sure that's okay. And I don't know about in the UK, but when I was growing up in Seattle, I had one male teacher before I got to junior high.
There's 4 times more female fighter pilots in the US Air Force by percentage than there are male kindergarten teachers.
There you go. You've done your research. So I had one teacher. So that means just to learn how to get from second to third grade, not only had to learn my reading, writing, and arithmetic, but how to please a woman. Okay. All of that's fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. I think that's actually probably the way it's always been. But historically, I mean, if we go back even 2 or 3 generations, but if you go through most of human history, at about age 12, the men came into the boy's life, took him, from the women, took him out, had a masculine initiation, taught him how to get comfortable being uncomfortable, how to face his fear, how to live in the scary world of the masculine, and spent most of his time from them on out with men in the masculine. And and so he moved through that. What do I have to do to please a woman? So I think that's a really normal thing that to try to please women is survival for every young boy. But what's missing is there's no initiation to teach them how to go face their fears in the scary world of the masculine and quit seeking the approval and validation of women. Because there's this really interesting paradox that I took me years to find out, and a lot of men I work with it's a big surprise. Is pursuing women and trying to please them doesn't make them interested in you. It doesn't make them like you. It doesn't make them want to have sex with you. No, it actually doesn't. Actually, not trying to please women tends to make a guy more interesting to women in general. And that's a big paradox to a lot of the men I work with. And it was for me. All this, me listening to them talk about their problems, me trying to be different than the jerks they complain about, me repressing my sexuality. So it's not like I just want that one thing from them. All that doesn't make them interested in me. No, it doesn't actually. But they do seem to be drawn and attracted to the guy who's comfortable in his own skin, living a life, on his terms, connected with men, putting a big dent in the universe. That is really attractive. But there's no, how do I get this woman's approval involved in that whole mix?
What are the covert contracts?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. That's my favorite part of No More Mr. Nice Guy. And I know many men read it and say, Robert, that is the biggest takeaway. The covert contracts are unspoken, often unconscious agreements that the nice guy has with everything that's not him, with the world, with God, with women, with just how things work. And in the book, I'm a little bit general, but I've broken it down to 3 specific covert contracts that nice guys have. They're all if then. If I do this, then this will happen. They all are basically manipulative. They all have strings attached. And often the nice guy isn't aware of them and nobody else is either. So covert contract number 1. If I'm a good guy, I will be liked and loved and get my, and going back to, and the women I'm trying to impress will want to be with me and have sex with me. So if I'm good, I'll be liked and loved. Number 2, if I meet everybody else's needs without them having to ask, then they will meet my needs without me having to ask. Now, unfortunately, nobody else knows this contract exists, so they don't know. They're supposed to be reading our minds and figure out what we want, like we're trying to do for them. Another core problem with this is that nice guys are actually really terrible receivers. We're not good at letting people do for us. We're not good at giving to ourselves. So that's covert contract number 2. Covert contract number 3 is if I do everything right, then I will have a smooth, problem-free world. So it's kind of a Peter Panish kind of thing. I do everything right. I'm a good guy, but unfortunately, we're the player, the referee, the scorekeeper. We got the big scoreboard. Hey, I've done everything right. How come this stuff still isn't going the way it's supposed to go in my life? So nice guys are walking around with these covert contracts, and you ask, what's the core characteristic of a nice guy? One of them is that they're often really resentful. They might say, well, I'm kind of bugged or I'm kind of frustrated, but they're really resentful and often rageful because I've been doing this. I've been doing it right. I've been following the rules. I've been, being the good guy. I've been meeting your needs. I've been, following all the rules. How come when's it my turn? How come I'm not getting all the stuff that I thought I would? And that leads to a lot of resentments. And that's one way I tell nice guys, they go, well, how do I know if I'm using covert contracts? And I go, you'll know because you're walking around resentful and pissed off, either because you didn't get back in turn or you didn't get appreciated for all that you did. I I heard somebody share a quote the other day that I really liked. To me, is another really nice way of putting covert contracts. And this, I guess, was from Neil Strauss. And he says, unspoken expectations.
Expectations are premeditated resentment.
Isn't that is what happens with covert contracts?
Phenomenal by him.
Yeah.
So the frustration and the resentfulness, that's coming from offering to the world something that you think should be universally liked. There's no way that anybody could be offended by what I'm doing. I'm following the rules. I'm offering the world lots whilst asking for nothing in return.
Yep.
And the fact that not asking for something in return results in you getting nothing in return.
Funny how that works. I don't know.
But I suppose this as well plays into the dishonesty bit. And it's so, I understand. I would say that I'm very much in nice guy category, very much a people pleaser. My temperament is to be averse to conflict as well. I've made a dent in many ways, but it's been done by weaving my way through avoiding much of the conflict that I would maybe need to. So I suppose I can be, at least in some regards, a paragon or like a role model for the successful nice guy in many ways.
Well, and me too. Again, I don't like conflict, but I'm doing okay.
There's something I always felt the fact that I wasn't like my go-to isn't typically aggression. That's not what I lean into. Despite the fact I've got a background of fighting and doing other things and physical training and stuff like that, I always felt like it emasculated me. The fact that there was something more heroic about being someone that was quick to anger. There was something kind of typically masculine about that. And I think I was not strong enough to say ashamed, but it didn't feel as grand to be someone who would be. I know that there's nobility in being under control, having your emotions under control, but there's also a degree of fragility, I think, that you can sometimes feel with that also.
Well, let me give one way to maybe look at the model and see if it fits what you're saying. Is that when I was writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, I really focused a lot on shame being a core foundation of nice guy syndrome, that internalized belief, I'm not okay, and inaccurately internalized belief from our earliest life experience, a few weeks old, few months old. By the time I finished writing the book and it was, getting ready to be published, by that time, I'd really come to also see that anxiety plays maybe an equally significant role in nice guy syndrome. So where everything that nice guys are doing is trying to manage that sense of shame. I'm not okay. I'm unlovable. I'm defective. And their anxiety states. I might piss somebody off. I might get rejected. I might get hurt. I might lose. I might look foolish. So, both of those states really play into it. And one of the things I've come to see is that whether we've got, just to kind of break it down, whether we got kind of the asshole jerk over here, that fighter, that quick to fight guy, or the wussy doormat, the nice guy over here that's the avoidant and kind of doesn't like the conflict. I think they're both on the same continuum. I think they are both in a fight, flight, freeze mode of managing their inner states of anxiety. The nice guy is in the flight, freeze, fawn, sometimes added to that list. And what we'd call the jerk is in the fight mode. Now, they're both still just trying to manipulate people and situations outside of them because they're anxious. The nice guy does it by being nice and avoidant and not upsetting anybody and, waiting for it to blow over, all that kind of. Whereas, the guy at the other end of the spectrum he's just quick to react with aggression to manage the people and situations around him. So he doesn't feel afraid and anxious. And so men will often, they'll read my book or, they'll hear some of my information and they'll say, Robert, I get that being a nice guy isn't working and I don't want to be that, but I don't want to be the asshole either. And, where's that middle ground? And I go, I actually don't know where the tipping point is between two dysfunctional extremes. It doesn't exist, right? What we're actually talking about is going to a different plane, a different level, where we actually learn to soothe ourselves, where we actually learn to be assertive, where we actually learn to have boundaries, where we actually learn to be differentiated and ask ourselves, what do I want? And follow through on it. Where there's a whole different plane of behavior versus just, what do I do to not feel anxious here? But again, the nice guy and the jerk, probably neither one is aware that they're trying to manage their anxiety states. And it isn't until you actually get told that maybe that's what you're doing, you go, oh, wow, I never thought about that before. And then you actually can feel your anxiety rather than trying to just manage it to where it doesn't, make you feel so anxious.
Is it a desire to feel safe then, to feel
Sure.
reassured?
Yeah, I think, safety is at the core, because when I took Child Development 101 back in grad school, I think the very first thing they told us, one of the few things maybe I remembered, was that for every child, abandonment equals death. So children come into the world inherently vulnerable. Right? There's no one to take care of us. It takes humans longer to mature into self-sufficiency than any other animal on the planet. Our grandfathers, maybe that was about 12 or 14. My age, it was more, considered 18, 21, 22. Now it's like 35 for a young man to, mature, to be able to take care of himself. That's a joke. But it's true. So we're dependent, completely dependent. And if somebody doesn't take care of us, we die. So if we get abandoned, neglected, we die. So I know for me, like when my wife, my wife Lupita and I have been married for 7 years now, Mexican woman I met here in Mexico. And she gets a look on her face. And like, I'll go into, this mode of, I got to fix it. She's upset. She's angry. I got to make it better. And, I've been working on this stuff for 30 years. So, it's not like I don't know what's happening. And I'll just watch myself have this anxiety state that I gotta talk her down through, over, get her back to good, make her happy again. And I'm thinking, why am I worried about with this short little Mexican woman? What look she has on her face? I love her, of course, but why is that triggering such depth of anxiety? And really, as I really sat with it and worked with it, it triggers a really old emotional state that does feel like I'm going to die. If this doesn't get better right now, I'm going to die. And I don't actually have that thought in my head, but my reaction to it feels that intense.
That's the embodied sensation. If you were
That's
to
the embodied, the nervous system, my emotional operating system. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, stepping outside of relationships for a second, or relationships with anybody, including friendships, one of the patterns that I've noticed, especially amongst some of my friends that are nice guys or recovering nice guys, is a desire to do things right.
Oh, of course.
To like a task in and of itself. I would guess that nice guys are probably more orderly than the normal person. Sources will be stacked in the right way. Mustn't have a dirty room.
Because again, you'd think that, okay, I got to do it right. I got to get it orderly. But I've got my camera angled where you can't see what's over on the sides.
All right, it's a mess.
It's not terrible, but it is messier on the sides than it is behind me.
Okay,
and so again, a lot of the nice guys I work with, they may have perfectionistic expectations of themselves, and some work really hard to meet them, and they're in a state of anxiety all the time. But others I know, they go, I haven't made my bed in years. I don't pick up after myself. I can't remember the last time I checked my bank account balance. So you'd think there would be that, but ironically, there's not. And here's a piece that it may sound odd on the surface of it, but when I talk with nice guys about their fears and their anxieties, I think one of the biggest anxiety or fear state that the typical nice guy might have isn't so much a fear of failure, fear of foolishness, fear of looking foolish, fear of loss, fear of making a mistake, is fear of success. Because what happens if I do get it right? What happens if I rise up to a level of success? And then, there's things that can happen. All of a sudden, the bar gets raised. The expectations are higher. I'm in a brighter spotlight. I might get attacked. I'm more visible. There's so many I'll lose control over my time. All of these built-in anxieties of what happens if I'm too successful. So again, a lot of times the nice guys will unconsciously, I don't really like the word self-sabotage, but they'll get in their own way of living up to their full potential, and keeping things messy around you is actually a pretty good way to, not live up to your full potential, not checking your bank account every now and then. That'll bite you on the ass sooner or later.
What about hidden behavior? They keep things hidden from themselves. They keep things hidden from everybody else. Why is that so common?
Why is it common? Because, those two things, when we first started, you asked me, what is the nice guy? And basically, and I said, he's the guy trying to get everybody's approval and validation, holding your finger up, says, which way's the wind blowing? But the other piece is that hiding things about ourselves, hiding anything, for example, that might get that look on my wife's face. Oh, she got that look. I must have done something. I better not do that again. Again, that began at a very, very early age, when getting that look from somebody important to us might result in getting slapped, getting smacked, getting neglected, getting yelled at, getting shaken, whatever. So nice guys is part of that. I got to hide whatever there is about me that tends to create these negative reactions around me. But often there's another piece, not universal, but often for nice guys in their family system, somebody has been defined as the needy person, the most important person. Could be dad, could be mom, could be a sibling, and their needs were more important. All the attention and focus went on, making sure dad never got pissed off, making sure mom didn't go on a tirade, making sure, brother doesn't, whatever, he's sick or he's out of control. So often for nice guys, we try to become this needless, wantless, never rock the boat, never be a moment's problem kind of person. So what we interpret is us having needs draws too much attention, and their needs are more important than mine. And so nice guys, we're again trying to avoid that negative reaction. The two things we often most hide are our needs and our wants and our sexuality. The sexuality, that's kind of easy to put a finger on. We live in a culture that we're bombarded with sexual stimuli everywhere you go, but still there's still that, that religious message that sex is bad, evil, save it for the one you love.
Shame.
Yeah, just the whole shame wrapped around sexuality. You'd think that would have gone away by now, but it's not. It's as strong as ever. So for the very young nice guy, when kind of back up a little bit back to the child development 101 stuff again. Every child, when they experience discomfort of any kind, they're hungry and they don't get fed. They wet their diaper, they mess in their diaper, they don't get changed. They're cold, they don't get held. They got a stomach ache, they don't get burped, whatever. Whenever a child experiences discomfort, their children are narcissistic by nature. Emotionally, they assume this is me. I'm the cause of this. I did something wrong. I'm bad. They don't think it, because the thinking brain isn't online at this early age. The emotional brain, fight, flight, freeze, survival brain is. And so a child will try to do two things in a very primitive way, a non-thinking, non-rational, purely emotional way. They will try to medicate the feeling states they're having, suck their thumb, eat, cry, sleep, smile, whatever, to try to not feel bad right now. And again, in a very primitive, pre-verbal kind of way, try to not do whatever that was that caused the uncomfortable states, or do something different. And so that begins at a really early age. And so the child is the shame is inaccurately internalized at an emotional level. I must have done something wrong. That's why this is happening. So I got to figure either how to do that different or not do that. Hide. And so all of this comes so early as part of an emotional language, an emotional operating system. It's not in words. It's not in picture memory. And it's primitive. So here we are trying to figure out how not to have these uncomfortable experiences and prevent them from happening again. And one of the best things our primitive brain came up with is hide. Whatever. I have needs. Oh, I have needs. I'm hungry. When I have needs, I get slapped. Oh, their needs are more important than mine. So just hiding is part of that, because we think it must be about me that's causing these painful, negative experiences to be happening to us.
Does this mean that nice guys often have coping strategies? Maybe they'll overeat. Maybe they'll be compulsive with social media use or porn or video games or substances or whatever.
The thing about that model I just gave you, that child development model, every human does that. Every human. We all just pick, usually, again, based on temperament and maybe just life experiences and birth order. We all pick, what are we going to do? How are we going to try to manage this? And I sucked my thumb till I was in kindergarten. I think maybe I was trying to deal with some uncomfortable feelings.
Self-soothing.
Self-soothing, exactly. Trying to manage some anxiety there. So that's what I did. Now, we go through childhood, then we hit adolescence, and now where we really want people's approval and want to fit in and be noticed and have attention, all of this really, gets fueled with our hormones and need for attention, where, then it really gets solidified and we pretty much carry these routines into adulthood. So yeah, trying to be perfect might be one. Trying not to be perfect because my brother was perfect and I couldn't, compete with him. So I'll be the opposite. I'll make the mess. Yeah, when I eat, I sure do feel better. When I spend all my day and night playing video games, I don't feel stressed. When isn't porn amazing? I didn't know that this existed. Look how I feel. If I get straight A's, look, I finally get some validation, but I don't know if it's ever enough. I better keep, succeeding, performing, I better get into great, amazing shape so I can be valuable. Oh, I'll never get in good shape, so who cares? I'll just keep eating. It can take so many different forms. And the only real logic to it is the infant logic that you and I and everybody else had at a few weeks and a few months old.
Why are nice guys bad receivers?
Because we think it makes us bad. The thing is that, as I said, most of us most nice guys internalize this belief. Well, because I have needs, that's why I have these bad things that happen to me. If I don't have needs, bad things won't happen. And often, again, I could look around in my family. Oh, dad's needs are more important. Well, let's all make sure dad's okay. Oh, now mom's unhappy. Let's all make sure mom's okay. My little brother was a general fuck up at pretty much everything. Oh, okay. We got to make sure little brother's okay because he's going to fuck up. And I kind of like, if I don't have needs, if I just kind of do everything right, I'll be the golden child. I'll get some validation. I won't get noticed too much and get in trouble. And so, again, that was my story. It's not every nice guy's story. But there's some fundamental piece in there that if it's visible, if people know I have needs, like that makes me vulnerable, it puts me at risk, it gives people control over me, I'll owe people something. So in my own personal work, one of the earliest things I had to start doing was making me a priority, where I did for me. I'd do for everybody else, but I wouldn't make me a priority. And I'd make sure my wife and kids, they all went to the dentist. I wouldn't go to the dentist. If I saw something on sale, I'd buy it for them. I wouldn't buy it for me. So I had to start taking good care of me. The next step that kind of came with that, but it came a little bit later for me, was actually beginning to surround myself with people who wanted to help me meet my needs and then actually letting them. That was really anxiety producing, to let people do things for me. And I had to consciously just go, okay, it's as simple as, like I said, I'll take the garbage out. And, we got to take the garbage from the kitchen to the front gate. It's 20 feet. Got to unlock the gate, put it out on the street. If I'm taking the garbage out, my wife will go, you need help? Well, no, I don't. I don't need any help to take a bag of garbage from the kitchen to the front. So my gut response was say no. But then I realized, well, I don't need any help, but she wants to be with me. She wants to accompany me. She doesn't want to think I'm doing all the work. Well, she's not. She's a very hard worker. I go, yeah, come help me. Do I really need the help? No. But it took me a while. I'm still learning that way. She's not really thinking I need help taking the garbage out. She just wants to come take the garbage out with me, just to walk to the street with me and back. It's okay. Well, who am I to say no to that?
That's the thing about being a bad receiver. It robs people of the enjoyment of helping you.
You've stole my words. When I got divorced in my late 40s after 25 years of marriage to two different women. And again, when I started dating and started meeting nice girls, who wanted to do anything for me, wouldn't ever say what they wanted, wouldn't make a decision. I thought, oh, I'd empathy for my two ex-wives, what I put them through with being a nice guy. But I remember I was dating one woman, and I met her because she sold me shoes at Nordstrom. And she worked in retail fashion sales. And I remember one time she came over to my apartment, and I'd done some laundry, left it on my couch. She started folding my laundry. And I said, you don't have to do that. She goes, no, I like doing it. And she goes, and I'm good at it. And, so she folds all my laundry, puts a little stack on the end of my bed. And she goes, but I won't put it away for you. I said, I'm not putting it away either. I'm leaving it out there to remind me somebody loves me, that somebody wanted to do something nice for me. After that, I started leaving my clean laundry on the couch so she could have the joy of coming over, and because it gave her pleasure. Now, who am I to rob her of that pleasure? And I need to work on it, because how am I going to receive great things in this world if I'm not good at receiving? If I can't let somebody fold my laundry, how am I going to receive the blessings of wealth, of fame, of opportunity, of adventure? So it's a very conscious practice. It was for me. So how do I let people give and let them have the pleasure of doing it?
The prevalence of, treat her like you don't like her, like why women love chads, like that kind of more Lothario approach to attracting women and getting what you want in life, and sort of being ruthless and stuff. Is that an erroneous solution to the problem of nice guyness?
It's a core problem with what you just proposed is it is equally inauthentic as the other, and it's equally attached to some external outcome by trying to figure out how to do it right. Right? How if I just do this right again, then I'll get the women to approve of me. We're still in the same boat. We're just looking for a different right way of doing it. Now, as simple as this sounds, when I do like interviews with like a female coach that maybe works with men, and I say something that a generalization like the feminine, meaning all things feminine, women, but dogs, cats, babies, opportunity, money, weather, whatever. I'll say is highly attracted to a man who's comfortable in his own skin, knows where he's going, and looks like he's having a good time going there. And the women, coaches, interviewers, podcasters always go, oh, yes. And I'm going, okay. They're reacting, kind of their nervous system is reacting to that thing. I didn't say the guy's an asshole. I didn't say he treats women bad. I didn't say he doesn't give a fuck about he's centered in his own body. He's differentiated. He's asking himself, what do I want? What's important to me? Following through on that. Not leaving the messes behind, not trying to be perfect, not seeking anybody's approval. He's on mission. He's on purpose. And in my experience, the feminine is highly attracted to that. You don't have to work at getting the feminine to be attracted. Now, are you always going to have feminine approval? I told someone the other day, this has never come out of my mouth before, but I said, actually, there is no standard of feminine approval. The feminine is not about standards. It's just about whatever is moving. Masculine is standards. You go into the masculine world, when you've lived up to the standard, when you've hit the ball out of the park, when you've scored a touchdown, when you made A's, when you made X amount of money. The masculine doing standards are clear. We can go into that world and go, I've achieved, I've made it. We have it. We have the status.
It's rigorous. It's orderly.
It requires something of you. There's discipline. There is no such thing as feminine approval. I mean, ask any guy, even a woman who approved of them dearly in one moment. I'll ask them, have you ever had experiences where the very next moment she was unapproving of you and nothing about you had changed? You hadn't even done, and guys all go, yeah, isn't that the way it always works? Yeah. One minute when I was dating, I had women tell me, Robert, you're the most amazing man. I'm so glad I met you. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy. And then never hear from them again. Or say, Robert, after 2 weeks, I'm taking a break from dating, or I'm giving my ex another try. And I'm going, what just happened? That's the world of the feminine. It isn't nailed down and orderly. So we have to quit seeking feminine approval. One of my certified coaches wrote a book that I really like, but there's a line in there. It said that a man does not mature until he quits seeking the love of a woman. As long as we're seeking love, that's a feminine trait. As long as we're seeking to get that approval, that love, that validation from a woman, we're in a loop that there's no escape from. But when we can self-validate, when we're on purpose, when we're living life on our terms, all of a sudden that makes us very attractive to the feminine. It will come to us. That's my experience. It will come. Now, as soon as you turn and go, oh, it's here. How do I keep it? How do I make it? No. We just blew it. They're all of a sudden now they're going to get that look on their face again. Like I go, what did I do wrong? So if we take the how do I get the women's approval out of the equation, you're more likely to get it. Now, does that mean you just don't give a fuck, don't care, whatever? That's not what again, it's not black and white. We men want to make it black and white. It must be this or it must be that. No, it's this. This is another level that we rise to that lets us put a dent in the universe, that lets us live with purpose and passion, that lets us connect deeply with others, that lets us be vulnerable and courageous, that actually invites the love into our life that we desire rather than seeking it